And there it goes. Hello, everybody. This is video 665, which a working title for the moment might be I was who I is and who I want to be, which doesn't make much sense, and we'll see if I can get it out. I'm taking a course in Druidry through the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids. Which is short for OBOD, OBOD, if you want to check it out on the internet. They're a group in Britain who just a Druidry revival, much like in America we have the ADF. It's just a group of Druids. And one of their exercises is to try and link up with your sense of self, your an earlier version of yourself and a later version of yourself, your younger self and your older self, a mental exercise, visualization, meditation, that type of thing. And it really struck me as a bit of a challenge for a transgender person to think of their, and I guess it depends on where you are in your transition, but to think about the older version of yourself, because you're changing who you are and you don't necessarily know how things are going to end up. You know, how are you going to look? How are you going to function? How are you going to sound? How are you going to behave? All of those things you just don't know when you start off your transition. I know I had an idea that I would end up ugly. And who would love me? And I'm 6 foot tall. I'm 350 pounds. I'm overweight. I'm obese. I still am. So why would I transition? Because I wouldn't want to be an ugly woman. Blah 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 blah. So it kind of makes the idea of communicating with your future self interesting, because it's an empty slate. You don't know what you're going to talk about, but to look towards your future self for some sort of wisdom or retrospective, to say to that personification of your future self, well, what knowledge do you have, or what can you share with me? Do you have a gift for me? How can you help me in my present? It is kind of a bit of a stretch, in a way. Granted, it's a mental exercise, so I guess really you're only limited by your imagination. The second part of that is looking back at your past by talking with your younger self, which again, for a trans person, you have the younger self that you were, who is probably a false being. I'll use myself as an example. I was a boy who didn't understand the world around them. I had urges and inclinations that didn't jive with what other boys did, and for fear later of being called gay, or I didn't know what I was, So to lean back on that, who I was when I was younger, is a very uncertain thing. You can't really stand on it. But then if you think about, well, maybe your younger self is the person you wanted to be. Could I look back upon myself and say, oh, it was a girl. It was a girl who didn't know how to live with the tools she was born with, So it's kind of it's kind of an interesting concept. Like I said, at one point, initially I was like, well, this is kind of a failure, a trans person. I can't really go back to who I was, because they weren't really a real person. They were a fake. They were a walking corpse. And then I can't really go in the future because my path's diverted, and the man that I was going to be will never exist, will never come to fruition, and the woman that I am to be hasn't gotten here yet, and I'm still trying to figure out who she is. So it's a lot. So it's a lot of a bit of a step, but I think it is kind of an interesting exercise. And if you can look at it that way, or you could look at it as an opportunity to say, well, this is the girl that I wanted to be, that I was, but I couldn't be. And maybe this is the young girl that I can be. I have to come to accept and explore the girl I would have been, the girl that I was repressed, but also the girl that I would have been, you know, almost as if there was a magic mirror or a pool or something you could look into and see the possibility of what could have been. Could you explore, well, what type of girl would I have been? Would I wanted to play sports? Would I have wanted to be a cheerleader? You know, if you had, there's Harry. If you had the body of a young girl as a young girl, you know, what would that body have been? You know, for me, it would have been a fat, overweight girl. But, you know, I could have been a cheerleader if I was so inclined. I could have, I grew up in the 70s. I could have gone roller skating, and whatnot, and I could have wore 70s jumpers, and yeah, that could have been me, or in the 80s I could have had a funky hairstyle. My favorite growing up, I guess when I think of the 80s, watching TV, I would have been Natalie on Facts of Life. I would have been kind of the fat girl. Yeah. So as a mental image, who would we have been, and what lessons perhaps would that young person, what would they give us? What would they tell us? What can we learn about being youthful and optimistic and active and just enthralled with the world? How can that past come into our present and affect us in that way? And then on the other hand, to look at being old. What will the older version of ourselves be? Again, for myself, I see a gray-haired fat lady playing with cats like I'm doing right now. Ow. Okay. All right. You win. You win. You win. He's chomping on my hand right now. He's giving me love nips. If you believe in such things, cats give you love nips, right? That's why the monitor is shaking so much. Okay, I'm going to stop putting up the fight here. See, now he's giving up. Psychology, cat psychology. I know it. Jackson Galaxy, you're not alone out there. So anyway, I'm going to keep this short. I've got another topic which I'll post on in a minute. But, this idea, I think it's a pretty interesting exercise if it's something you'd be interested in doing. You don't necessarily have to be transgender to do it. But to close your eyes and think for a moment and envision, picture yourself in a room and meeting a younger version of yourself and an older version of yourself. What would they talk to you about? What would they say? And maybe this is dwelling a little bit on psychology. One thing that a therapist had asked me at the tail end of right before surgery, she said to me if I had made peace with my former self, with my male self, how did I consider my male self dead? Did I have a funeral service, as it were, to send them off, to lay them to rest? And, and as it turns out, no, I've just assimilated, I am the same person, as I was before. I just look different now, and, yesterday I went to, the barbecue place nearby, and, I didn't particularly feel feminine. Walked in, can I help you, ma'am? What would you like? Absolutely, hon, I'll get that for you. Here you go, ma'am. Treated as a woman and walked in stride with it. It felt really, really good. And there was a guy that almost bumped into me, and I was like, oh, excuse me. I did what was natural to me And that perhaps is maybe an objective for any trans person after they transition. What is their default, which was always either masculine or feminine or male or female? It just feels right. And I have a friend who is a trans woman who is trying so hard to be a woman, and maybe we all go through that step. I don't know. I'm not knocking it. But it's like they feel like they have to change everything about themselves, and they can't do anything the way they used to. And maybe that's what we do the first year or second year of our transition. We try different things, and in the end, we are who we are. We develop our own sense of style. I think that sounds really good. I don't know if it's true or not, but we find our own sense of style, and much like I think women do. I think I've mentioned this before. My stepfather said that the difference between a woman and a girl was that one of the differences between a woman and a girl is that a woman has her own sense of style. She's not out to emulate someone else. She's her own self. And that's something I notice somewhat in the younger trans women and younger women in general. And again, along that definition, I should say younger girls. But, before a woman finds herself, she's emulating, she's going to she's going to watch the YouTube makeup tutorials because she wants to look like someone else. And maybe we're going into different waters now. We're going into my personal preferences, which are going to be different than everyone else's, and that's okay. Everyone's an individual, right? But I got a lecture too the other day from another trans woman about wearing makeup and everything, and there was a line from a movie. It was the Wizard of Speed and Time. It was Mike Jitlove, which came out when I was younger. And the thing about Mike is he doesn't shake hands. He's not a handshaker. And people we're not used to that. We're used to meeting someone and shaking hands. And he doesn't shake hands. It's just a personal preference. And at one point, someone confronts him on it. And they're mean to him. And he's like, I'm sorry that you feel like you have to shake a piece of my body before you'll be civil to me. And in a way, that's the way I felt about makeup. Was there was a time guilty that I wanted to wear makeup every day, and we'll go back to the idea of the younger self. I had a dream last night, 2 nights ago, about I remembered what it was like to be young. I was left alone a lot at my grandma's house, while she worked or she did stuff. I mean, I was totally safe, and I mean, by today's standards, you probably would go, "Oh, you were left by yourself." But I was, my folks worked, and during the divorce, I spent a lot of time at my grandma's house as a young boy, and her bathroom was just overwhelming with perfumes and scents and soaps and oils and, baths and cosmetics. And I mean, I look back on it now, there were so many times that I would go into her bathroom and just look at stuff, look at the different lipsticks and eyeshadows and eye pencils. And it was just such a mysterious world. But I had an enormous sense of guilt. I knew I shouldn't have been in there. And the temptation was so much I wanted to try it. And it was fighting. It was like, so I get it. And I went through a period of makeup and everything else. But the one woman said something about how I wasn't a woman because I wasn't wearing makeup. And well, much like Mike, I had the same reaction. I was like, if you feel like I'm not a woman because I don't put goopy stuff on my face, you've got issues. I don't know. It made me want to do a slideshow from around the world and, show a picture of a person in Africa, a woman, and a tribes person in Africa, with her boobs hanging out, no makeup, and you're like, well, is this a woman? She's not wearing makeup, But that's been my thing lately. That probably sounds very spiteful, but that's been my thing lately is, no, I don't want to put goop on my face. There was a time I did, but, if being a woman, you know what I mean? Like, if I have to put plastic and paint and shit on my face and wax and dye and whatnot for you to treat me with respect as a woman, then you've got problems. But again, that's been my own issue. Now the other part of that is I'm old. I'm older. Not to say that older women don't wear makeup or whatnot, but so much of, when I see a commercial for CoverGirl, it's a girl in her 20s who has no business. She has no need to wear makeup. She's naturally beautiful. Her skin is flawless, and oh, if I just use this cream, and you're like, but you're 20, But again, I've been through there. I've been there so much. Again, I've transitioned. We do go through a second puberty, when back to the idea of the younger self, the younger girl. Oh, I could see myself being all over it, whereas older me is not into it. So anyway, I just thought I would share that. I know we kind of went off the rails to a different topic, off topic, but just again, the idea of being able to reach out and communicate with our younger self who maybe we wanted to be but couldn't, and giving them the freedom to be now. I'm not necessarily saying we to act upon that, to go get you a set of Barbie dolls and play, but hell, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. I'd rather play with Star Wars toys myself. But lately I've been watching G.I. Joe videos. Man, so many G.I. Joe toys I wanted. I could probably buy them on eBay, put them in the cabinet over there. But yeah, I'd still, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was the original, Jeep I used to have. And even when I was 18 years old, I went go down to the beach and build sand castles and forts as an 18-year-old and have my G.I. Joes. I was playing. That was me. So I would still play with G.I. Joe right now, actually. And Legos, too. But anyway, the idea of talking with your younger girl or boy self and maybe trying to figure out what they would give to you now, what you can give to them, and then your older self. What you can give to them and they to you. So anyway, I'm going to end it here. I'm going to make another one real quick, I hope, and we'll get this up right now though. All right, so this is it for this one. Bye-bye. Good luck.